Remember what we said earlier that New Covenant Theology says. New Covenant Theology holds that when the Mosaic Covenant came, the Sabbath came, and therefore when it went, the Sabbath went, because it was fulfilled by Christ. But Genesis chapter 2 demonstrates that the Sabbath came long before the Mosaic Covenant. It was a creation ordinance, a rule grounded in creation itself, like marriage and procreation and work. Let's think about some of those briefly. Marriage is not reserved for the Jew. It is a gift and a command. That this is the only God-honouring institution for sexual union. It is a gift and a command for all mankind, grounded in creation when God made Eve to be a helper fit for Adam and gave her away to him at the first marriage ceremony, as we read in Genesis chapter 2. And so marriage does not fall away with the passing of the old covenant and the arrival of the new. And the same is true of procreation. When God made mankind, Genesis 1 verse 28, he blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply, fill the earth and subdue it." Procreation, having babies, is not reserved for the Jew. It is a gift and, in a sense, a command for all mankind. Grounded in creation when God commanded Adam and Eve to be fruitful and multiply, as we read there in Genesis chapter 1. Procreation, therefore, does not fall away with the passing of the old covenant and the arrival of the new. And likewise, the same can be said for the Sabbath day. The Sabbath day and Sabbath observance is not reserved for the Jew. It is a gift and a command for all mankind, grounded in creation, when God himself, having chosen to create over the course of 6 days, Sabbathed on the 7th from his work of creation to establish a pattern for his image bearers to follow, as we read about in Genesis chapter 2. And so the Sabbath day does not fall away with the passing of the old covenant and the arrival of the new. And we see further evidence of this, that the Sabbath is a creation ordinance that came before the Mosaic Covenant, from Exodus chapter 16. Let's turn there. So we'll flick on through to Exodus chapter 16. Now what's going on here is that the Israelites are in the desert. They're in the wilderness after God has rescued them from Egypt through his servant Moses with plagues and the parting of the Red Sea. And he's leading them through the wilderness to the promised land, yet hardly 5 minutes into their journey. You get the parting of the Red Sea, chapter 14, and then we come to this sort of song of celebration and praise of God in chapter 15, and then in the very next chapter they are, well, in fact, even in that chapter, chapter 15, they are complaining. Just, it's extraordinary, isn't it? The Israelites complain to Moses, and here in chapter 16, because they don't have any bread to eat. And in the Lord's grace, he says that he will rain down bread from heaven for them, which they are to gather each day. And then notice what he says in verse 5. And it shall be on the 6th day that they shall prepare what they bring in, and it shall be twice as much as they gather daily. Why is that? Verse 23, let's skip down to verse 23. Then he said to them, "This is what the Lord has said. Tomorrow is a Sabbath rest, a holy Sabbath to the Lord. Bake what you will bake today, and boil what you will boil, and lay up for yourselves all that remains to be kept until morning." And verse 29, "See," God says, "see, for the Lord has given you the Sabbath. Therefore he gives you on the 6th day bread for 2 days. Let every man remain in his place, let no man go out of his place on the 7th day. So the people rested, or again, literally, just like in Genesis chapter 2, verse 3, the people Sabbathed on the seventh day. So here we are in Exodus 16, crucially before we get to Mount Sinai and the giving of the law in chapter 20, and we have an example of the Sabbath being observed. And we could look at other examples in order helpfully brought to us even the distinction in Eden itself of a Sabbath day that was being observed. What we're seeing once again is that rather than being a Mosaic law, a particular ceremonial, additional, positive law for the Old Covenant people, the Sabbath is a creation ordinance which was established in the act of creation itself for all mankind in all time. Now, before we move on, let's spend a moment just drawing some reflections about the Sabbath from these two passages that we've looked at so far. Firstly, the Sabbath is a rest from work. Well, that's clear, isn't it? From the pattern established by God in creation. In 6 days, God created, God worked, He created the world, and on the 7th, He rested, or Sabbathed, from His work of creation. And so mankind, made in His image, is to do likewise. There are 6 days for us to work, to do our work, whether that's paid employment or schoolwork or housework or our usual day-to-day activities. But then you have a Sabbath day to rest from those duties.